Here we go. Good. Now I'll read the story to you, which I wrote this story. When was it? It was in Tafshin. Oh, here it is. Tafshin, the Samech Vav, which means, was it 2001? Huh? That's when I wrote it. Oh, here we go. Story. The Yom Kippur War.
Not 2001, 2006.
5761 is Tafshin Samech Aleph.
You said Vav.
Oh no, I'm sorry. Tafshin Samech Aleph. I'm sorry. So 2001. Okay. Story. The Yom Kippur War left Israel with thousands of casualties, and one of them was Mr. Sadon. Mr. Sadon had been lying for weeks in critical condition in the Tzrifim hospital right near my house. The doctors weren't optimistic, but his wife sat by his bedside. She knew better. She was sure that against all odds, everything would be okay. And she wrote a letter to the Lubavitcher Rebbe, Mr. Sadon. Mr. Sadon was not a religious Jew. Like so many Sephardic Jews, they came from the countries where they were religious, and they came to Israel, and either their parents or them, they became non-religious. But his wife, she was religious. And her grandparents, I guess she was Ashkenazic anyway, they were Chabad Hasidim. Maybe she was Bukhari, maybe she was Gruzini, a lot of them also. In any case, she left it all when she became a young girl, and they came to Israel. But nevertheless, when there was trouble, she would write to the Rebbe. Next to Mr. Sadon was a Sephardic Jew called Mr. Shapir. When they came to Israel, they changed their names. They're called Evrit. So next to Mr. Sadon, he's in bad shape, right? And his wife is praying for him. She's writing a letter to the Rebbe. And next to him is laying a person called Mr. Shapir. And he had also been severely wounded, and he also had a dim prognosis. When he saw that Mr. Sadon's wife was writing to the Rebbe, he motioned for her to come close, and he gave her a small book of Psalms. Small book. There was a family heirloom given to him by his grandfather. Like I say, almost all the Jews, especially those from Morocco, when they came to Israel, they were religious, but their children became non-religious. Sometimes they themselves become non-religious. Anyway, so Mr. Shapir, the non-religious Moroccan Jew, he begged her to send this to the Rebbe and that he should sign it, because he also believed in the Rebbe. These Sephardic Jews believe in tzaddikim. They believe that the tzaddikim are holy people. Understand? The Ashkenazic Jews, they hated the tzaddikim. They had nothing with that. But they were the ones that founded, the Zionist idea was that no God, no, that we're going to do it ourselves. And they convinced okay. So Mr. Sadon was sick, and his wife was writing to the Rebbe. So she took this little book of Psalms, which Mr. Shapir, who he also was not a religious Jew, but he held on to these because his father gave it to him. So she took this book of Psalms, and she put it in together with her letter, and she mailed it to the Rebbe. And she asked that the Rebbe, she put in, this is from the person laying next to my husband in the hospital, and he requested the Rebbe should sign his name and write something in it. Now, the Rebbe never wrote in books, and he wouldn't do it, but that's what she requested. Okay, Mr. Sadon, this is the one whose wife wrote the letter, his situation improved. And 2 weeks later, the hospital told him that he could go home, that he could continue his healing process at home because they needed the bread for more serious cases. There was a lot of injured. After a few months at home, they'd almost forgot about the incident. Things began to return to normal. Mr. Sadon started to walk and everything. Until one day, Mrs. Sadon received a small envelope from the office of the Lubavitcher Rebbe, a little package. Inside of this envelope was Mr. Shapir's tiny book of Psalms, and it was actually inscribed and signed by the Rebbe in very, very small letters. And there was a letter to her. And the letter said that the blessings that I wrote, he repeated the blessings that he wrote in the book of Psalms, and he added a couple more blessings because there was more room. It was a page. And he explained that he was not his custom to ever sign anything in a holy book, but here, because it was a soldier and he risked his life for Jews, so here he made an exception. And then he signed his name again to the letter. But at the bottom of the letter, he wrote a PS, and he wrote over there, apparently he wrote to Mrs. Shapir, no, to Mrs. Sedone, I'm sorry, to Mrs. Sedone, he wrote a little PS at the end, right, that in addition to the blessings I gave and Mr. Shapir's the Psalms, so he wrote and said, apparently you already light Shabbos candles like every kosher Jewish woman. Like the Rebbe said, I am sure that you already light Shabbos candles like every kosher Jewish woman, which he did not. She did not. So the next morning, this Mrs. Sedone, she called the hospital to go there and give the book back. But she discovered that Mr. Shapir, he recovered, and he had left a few weeks earlier. So she got her number from his number, Shapir's number from the phone book, and called the house, but there was no answer. So she mailed him a letter, and she said, I have the book of Psalms. Would you please answer me back? Sure enough, 2 weeks later, she got a knock on her door. And who was it? Mr. Shapir. Mr. Shapir had been in a recuperation center for the last few weeks. That's why he never answered the phone. She called, a few times, never answered. And as soon as he arrived home and he saw her letter, he immediately took a taxi to her house. So they were sitting together, and each one was telling about how we got better and better and better and better. And even against all the doctor's prognosis and everything, and he was so amazed that the Rebbe actually signed the little book, and he was happy, and that's it. And he left. But so he left, and he was healed, and her husband was healed. But she still had this letter, and the footnote was left in her mind. On one hand, she was not religious at all. She left Jewish observance for a very good reason. It was old-fashioned, closed-minded, unpopular. And who needs it? And you know what happens when a Jew leaves Torah and mitzvahs? You know what happens? Absolutely nothing. Absolutely nothing happens. If you don't put on tefillin, nothing happens. You don't keep Shabbos, you don't lose anything, right? Nothing happens. So she was living okay life, Why should she? Who needs the Torah of the man? But she saw that the Lubavitcher Rebbe that it was important to him that she should light candles, and that somehow or other this whole thing was connected to them getting healthy and getting healed. And after all, she did believe in tzaddikim. And so here's an important person, a genuine person that wants her to light candles. And this is after she got healed, right? Everyone was healed and everything. So it's not, light candles and you'll get healed. And if not, then, you're taking your life. The Rebbe didn't say that. No. Healing, no problem. For free. You want to light candles? Do it for free. Do it for free. So something inside of her said, light candles like every Jewish woman. Little by little, as she started warming up to the idea, after the Rebbe did write the letter to her, and it was the same Rebbe that just helped her and so many other thousands of Jews, and it can't be that lighting candles is going to be that bad. So after a few weeks of this, indecision, she decided she'd do it. So she lit Shabbos candles. She even went to the store and she bought candle holders. But when she arrived home, she realized that she had been so long away from it, she didn't know exactly when to light the candles or where to put the candles. She even forgot the blessing, right? She thought maybe she would remember, but she hadn't made any blessings for 20 years. Who knows how long? She had never made any blessings, right? And so she remembered the beginning, but she didn't know and even more, she didn't even know who to ask. She didn't have any connection with any rabbis or anything. So she was confused with a few minutes. She didn't know what to do. And all of a sudden she got a phone call. Who was it? It was her son. And her son was calling from the army. he was supposed to come home that weekend, but it had been canceled. And she said, "Oh, that's terrible. Your weekend, your leave was canceled. But listen, I was really looking forward to telling you. But listen, is there a rabbi over there? There's an army rabbi." And he said, his son said, "Just 1 second, 1 second." The son, hold the phone. He went and he brought the rabbi. So the rabbi said, "Can I help you?" He said, "Yeah, listen, I want to know where I want to light candles to Shabbos, and I forgot how to do it, and I don't know what to do." So he said, "Okay, no problem. I'll tell you what to do, and I'll even send you a little what's called Kitzur Shulchan Aruch, abbreviated Jewish law book. I'll send it to you, but meanwhile, I'll tell you what to do, and the blessings, write it down." So she lit the candles, put her hands over her eyes. And she said the blessing. And she stood there. Excuse me. So when she uncovered her eyes, suddenly everything was different. Suddenly everything was different. Everything was so quiet. And she started to cry. So next week, she said, she lit the candles again. Of course, this time she wasn't as emotional as the first time, but she said, listen, there's some of the pictures over here are not sort of right, with the candles, the Shabbos light, it's so pure. She had one of those, a picture of Picasso, one knows what. So she moved it. She moved the pictures that didn't sort of fit in with the purity of the lights. And then I guess she received this little book from the rabbi. So she bought a few other Torah books. And on Shabbat, she decided she has to watch television on Shabbat. The programs are so great on Shabbat. And finally, she decided to contact the local local Chabad house, and to make her kitchen kosher. This story must have happened, 50 years ago. When was the 6-Day War was in 70, right? So 73, that's 50 years ago, right? 50 years ago was the 70. So things began to move. It wasn't after that there were mezuzahs on her doors, and Mr. Sedone, he actually bought a pair of tefillin, and he even started attending Torah classes, and that was just the beginning. The Rebbe, and they changed totally. They changed totally. The Rebbe and the Shabbat candles illuminated their life and made the change. And that is the message of this week's Torah portion and of the Torah in general. Light, and a little bit of light all of a sudden opens up a new reality of a bigger reality that encompasses everything in the world. The world remains the world, but it's just a little aleph inside of it, a little bit of light. And so it should be to all of us, God willing, with Mashiach. Now, see you all tomorrow at 8:15.